moment they lifted their gold medals into the air, cameras from around the world were focused on one pair. The flashes, the cheers, the tears, and the history unfolding on the ice all belonged to Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara. They were undeniably the stars of the night, but standing quietly just outside the spotlight was another man whose story deserves to be told. Do you remember him? He wasn't standing on the podium. He wasn't wearing a medal around his neck. He wasn't being interviewed by reporters or surrounded by photographers. Yet no one in the building looked more satisfied than he did. Watching from a distance with a calm smile was Canadian coach Bruno Marcotte, the man who 7 years earlier had brought together a veteran skater considering retirement and a young girl searching for a new future. He was the man who stayed beside them through every challenge until they became Olympic champions. Today, this is the story of the other hero behind Riku and Ryu's incredible journey. Before we talk about the 7 years he spent getting them, we need to understand the path that brought Bruno Marcotte here. Born in 1974 in Montreal, Quebec, Marcotte grew up in the heart of French-speaking Canada. Long before he became one of the world's most respected coaches, he was a pair skater himself. In 1993, he won a bronze medal at the World Junior Championships, showing early promise on the international stage. As he moved into senior competition, he partnered with several different skaters and eventually competed at the 2002 World Championships in Nagano, Japan, where he finished 12th. It was a respectable career, but not a legendary one. He never reached the very top of the sport as an athlete. After that season, he retired from competitive skating. Yet sometimes the people who fall short of the summit learn lessons that champions never do. Marcotte understood firsthand how difficult pair skating truly is. He knew what it meant to trust another person completely, to place your body and your safety in someone else's hands. He understood the fear felt by the skater being thrown into the air and the responsibility carried by the partner doing the throwing. He knew how a split second of mistiming could lead to serious injury. Every success, every mistake, every disappointment became part of his education. The experience of not reaching the top as a skater eventually became one of his greatest strengths as a coach. After retiring, Marcotte stepped into coaching, and that is where his story truly began. Working with Canadian pair skaters Megan Duhamel and Eric Radford, he helped transform them into one of the most dominant teams in the world. Under his guidance, they won multiple world championships and captured Olympic gold in the team event at the 2018 Winter Olympics, while also earning bronze in the pairs competition. The places Marcotte could not reach as an athlete, he helped his students reach instead. In many ways, pair skating was more than a profession to him. It was his life's work. It was about building trust, creating partnerships, and helping two people become stronger together than they could ever be alone. What many fans don't realize is that Marcotte's connection with Riku Miura began long before the world knew her name. Years before she became an Olympic champion, she attended a skating seminar in Japan as a 12-year-old singles skater. Marcotte happened to be one of the coaches there. Among countless young athletes, one girl stood out. Years later, he remembered that moment clearly. I felt there was something very special about her. At 12 years old, Riku was just another young skater with big dreams, but Marcotte saw something hidden beneath the surface, a rare quality that could not be measured by scores or medals. Then came June 2019. Japanese skating officials invited Marcotte to Japan as part of a project designed to strengthen the country's pair skating program. Japan had produced world-class singles skaters for decades, but success in pairs remained elusive. Marcotte's mission was to help change that. What happened during that trip would alter Japanese skating history forever. At the time, Ryuichi Kihara was standing at a crossroads. He had already competed in 2 Olympic Games and spent years searching for stability in his career. After the end of a previous partnership, he was beginning to wonder whether his future in the sport had reached its end. Meanwhile, a young skater named Riku Miura was searching for an opportunity to take the next step in her career. Marcotte had an idea. Why not put them on the ice together? During a trial session, Kihara lifted Miura into the air for a twist lift. It lasted only a moment. To everyone else, it may have looked like just another practice attempt. But Marcotte saw something. The timing was natural. The movement was effortless. The connection was immediate. In that single moment, he sensed the possibility of something extraordinary. Today, looking back, that lift feels like the first page of a story that would eventually inspire an entire nation. But recognizing potential and turning potential into greatness are two completely different challenges. The real work began when Miura and Kihara moved to Oakville, Ontario, to train under Marcotte's guidance. For the two Japanese skaters, it meant leaving behind family, friends, and everything familiar. They arrived in a small Canadian town where they barely knew anyone. The language was different. The culture was different. The entire world around them was different. Yet this wasn't only a challenge for the athletes. Marcotte was taking responsibility for two young skaters from the other side of the world. Their development on the ice mattered, but so did everything happening away from the rink. Homesickness, injuries, confidence struggles, loneliness, cultural adjustments. All of it became part of the job. In many ways, he became more than a coach. He became a mentor, a guardian, and a source of stability. Throughout those 7 years, there was one message he repeated again and again. Always stay positive. The words sound simple, almost too simple, but imagine hearing them after a disappointing competition. Imagine hearing them while fighting through injury. Imagine hearing them during difficult days when progress feels impossible. Over time, those words became part of Miura and Kihara's foundation. Kihara later admitted that Marcotte's philosophy of staying positive remained deeply rooted in everything they did. Miura echoed the same feeling, saying that Marcotte always guided them toward the right direction and helped them find solutions when challenges appeared. That trust became one of the strongest pillars of their partnership. There are many coaches who can teach technique. There are many coaches who understand jumps, lifts, and throws, but very few can help athletes navigate the emotional side of elite competition. Marcotte could. He wasn't simply teaching skating skills. He was teaching resilience. He was teaching patience. He was teaching how to survive setbacks and continue moving forward. That may have been his greatest gift. When Marcotte speaks about his athletes, his respect for them is impossible to miss. He has often described Riku as someone truly special. When speaking about Kihara, he once said he was amazed not only by his talent, but by the kindness and beauty of his character. Notice what he praised: not scores, not medals, not technical elements. He praised the person. That kind of admiration only develops after years of shared struggles, victories, disappointments, and growth. Marcotte wasn't just watching two skaters become champions. He was watching two young people become remarkable human beings. He was never the loudest voice in the room. He wasn't chasing headlines or attention. Cameras rarely focused on him. Fans rarely chanted his name. Yet every day in Oakville, he stood beside them. He was there when practices went badly. He was there when injuries threatened everything. He was there when confidence disappeared. He was there when success still felt impossibly far away. Long before the gold medals, before the standing ovations, before the history-making performances, Bruno Marcotte was already there. And perhaps that is why the image of him standing quietly beyond the spotlight remains so powerful. Because while the world celebrated two Olympic champions, the man who helped build that dream from the very beginning stood silently in the background, knowing exactly how far they had come. Sometimes the most important person in a championship story is not the athlete standing on the podium. Sometimes it is the coach standing just outside the frame. But the foundation behind that incredible comeback was built long before the world ever witnessed it. The talent Bruno Marcotte recognized in that first trial session did not lead to an easy journey. The road ahead was filled with obstacles, setbacks, and moments when everything seemed ready to fall apart. Inside the Oakville rink, where Marcotte spent countless hours guiding Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, major challenges arrived again and again. Most of them came in the form of injuries. In 2022, just before an important competition, disaster struck. Riku Miura suffered a shoulder dislocation. For a pair skater, the shoulder is everything. Every lift, every throw, every element depends on that critical joint. The pain was immediate. The uncertainty was overwhelming. No one knows exactly what expression was on Marcotte's face as he watched his athletes suffer, but one thing is certain. When a skater is hurting, the coach who has devoted years to that athlete hurts as well. Yet Marcotte never panicked. He never rushed the process. He never demanded shortcuts. Instead, he focused on patience. Heal first, recover completely, then begin again from the ground up. That philosophy would become one of the defining characteristics of his coaching career. Then came another devastating blow. In the fall of 2023, Ryuichi Kihara was diagnosed with a stress fracture in his lower back. For a male pair skater, the back is the foundation of everything. It is the structure that supports every lift and absorbs tremendous physical strain every day. Suddenly, that foundation was compromised. Kihara was forced to miss multiple competitions. The routines that had once felt automatic came to an abrupt stop. Training schedules disappeared, goals were put on hold, and the future became uncertain. These were the moments when Marcot's simple message became most important. Always stay positive. Those words weren't meant for victory celebrations. They were designed for days like these, days when athletes question themselves, days when progress seems impossible, days when frustration threatens to overwhelm hope. Marcotte never abandoned them during those moments. He never pressured them to return too quickly. Instead, he helped them continue moving forward one step at a time, and perhaps most importantly, he protected the partnership itself. When one athlete struggled, the other stepped forward. When one lost confidence, the other offered support. The bond between Miura and Kihara grew stronger with every challenge they survived together, and Marcotte was their nurturing that bond every step of the way. Each injury deepened their trust in one another. Each setback strengthened their belief in their coach. And slowly, almost invisibly, those difficult years began turning into results. At the 2021 World Championships, they finished 10th. At the 2022 Beijing Olympics, they placed 7th. Those results were respectable, but they weren't yet championship performances. There was no overnight success, no miracle shortcut, just years of quiet work inside a small Canadian town that most sports fans had never heard of. One step, then another, until finally everything changed. In 2023, Miura and Kihara became world champions. For the first time in history, a Japanese pair stood at the very top of the world. 4 years had passed since Marcotte first saw that spark of potential in a single trial session. 4 years of believing, teaching, encouraging, and rebuilding. And now the dream he had envisioned was standing on the highest podium in the sport. For decades, many people believed Japan could never truly compete with the world's strongest pair skating nations. Marcotte, Miura, and Kihara shattered that belief forever, but their greatest test was still waiting. The 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina arrived with enormous expectations. This time they were no longer underdogs. They were no longer the team chasing history. They were the reigning world champions, the favorites, the pair everyone expected to win gold. And that is often when sports become the most dangerous, because expectations can be heavier than any opponent. Then came the nightmare. During the short program, the element that had become one of their greatest strengths suddenly failed them. A mistake on a lift. The kind of error nobody expected. The kind of error that changes everything. When the scores appeared, Miura and Kihara found themselves sitting in 5th place. The gold medal that seemed within reach suddenly felt as though it was slipping through their fingers. Reports later revealed that Kihara was devastated. After the performance, he struggled to move. He cried. This wasn't a young athlete experiencing disappointment for the first time. This was a veteran who had already competed in multiple Olympics. A world champion, a leader, and yet the weight of that mistake nearly broke him. The dream they had spent years chasing appeared to be fading away, and in that moment one person immediately went to him, Bruno Marcotte. According to reports, Marcotte looked directly at Kihara and repeated the same message over and over again. It's not over, not once. Not twice. Again and again, it's not over. International broadcasters later highlighted that moment because Marcotte wasn't simply offering comfort. He genuinely believed it. He had evidence. He reminded them of a famous Olympic comeback from years earlier. At the 2018 Olympics, Germany's Aljona Savchenko and Bruno Massot had fallen behind after the short program, only to produce a remarkable comeback and capture gold. It had happened before. It could happen again. Marcotte wanted his athletes to remember that impossible doesn't always mean impossible. Years later, reflecting on that moment, Marcotte revealed the message he gave them after the short program. You have to be the best in the world. Simple, direct, uncompromising, and perhaps his most powerful statement came afterward. I never stopped believing. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes athletes lose faith in themselves. Sometimes pressure becomes overwhelming. Sometimes fear becomes louder than confidence. But every great athlete needs someone who continues believing when they can no longer believe for themselves. That night, when much of the skating world wondered whether the gold medal dream had slipped away, Bruno Marcotte never stopped believing. Then came the free skate. What happened next felt almost unreal. Reporters later described Miura and Kihara as looking like completely different athletes. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. The disappointment from the previous day had disappeared. What remained was pure determination. When the music ended, the scoreboard displayed a number that stunned the skating world: 158.13 points, a score that became one of the greatest free skates ever performed. Their total score climbed to 231.2, and just like that, they completed one of the most dramatic Olympic comebacks in pair skating history. Gold medal, Olympic champions. The first Japanese pair ever to reach the top of the Olympic podium. History had been made. 7 years earlier, Marcotte had seen a small possibility, a brief glimpse of potential. Now that possibility stood on the biggest stage in sports wearing Olympic gold. The cameras focused on Miura and Kihara as tears flowed and emotions exploded across the arena. But standing just beyond the spotlight was the coach who had believed in them from the very beginning. Marcotte later described the comeback as feeling almost magical, but it wasn't magic. Magic suggests something happened instantly. This took 7 years, 7 years of early mornings, 7 years of injuries, 7 years of setbacks, 7 years of patience, 7 years of refusing to quit. What looked like magic to the world was actually the result of thousands of unseen days inside a small rink in Oakville, and perhaps that is what makes the story so powerful. Because greatness is rarely created in front of cameras. It is created in empty rinks, difficult moments, and quiet conversations that nobody else ever sees.